The grand ballroom of the Meridian estate was decorated exactly how Dad wanted it. Crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, a live jazz band, and 150 guests mingling with champagne glasses. I stood near the back corner watching my sister Victoria hold court at the center table, wearing a dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. I'd arrived early like always. Not because I was excited but because I wanted to see how they'd treat me this time. It had been 6 months since I'd seen any of them. 6 months since Mom told me not to bother coming around anymore because it's just too complicated to explain you to people. Victoria spotted me first. She was standing with her husband Marcus, both of them looking like they'd just stepped out of a luxury magazine spread. She whispered something to him and they both looked my way and laughed. I recognized that laugh. It was the same one she'd used when we were teenagers and she told her friends I was just the help at her sweet 16. Emily. Mom's voice cut through the crowd. She approached me with that tight smile she reserved for uncomfortable situations. You made it. How nice. Happy birthday to Dad, I said quietly. Yes, well, Victoria has arranged everything. Isn't she wonderful? Mom adjusted her pearl necklace. She's been so busy with the planning. You understand why we didn't ask you to help, right? You've got your hands full with, what is it you do again? I work in property management, I said. Oh, that's right. Well, someone has to do those jobs. She patted my arm and walked away before I could respond. I made my way to the bar and ordered water. The bartender smiled at me warmly. Good evening, Miss Carter. The usual. I nodded. He knew me well. He'd worked at the Meridian estate for 3 years now, so had the entire staff. They all knew me by name. Dad arrived with his usual entourage. Business partners, golf buddies, people who wanted something from him. He was a successful commercial real estate developer, the kind of man who measured his worth by the size of his portfolio and the prestige of his connections. He'd built the Henderson name into something people recognized in our city. When he saw me, he gave a brief nod. No hug. No, good to see you. Just acknowledgement that I'd shown up. Victoria clinked her glass and stood up to make a speech. Everyone, thank you for celebrating Dad's 60th birthday with us tonight. Daddy, you've given us everything, success, opportunity, and the Henderson legacy. She paused dramatically. Most of us, anyway. People chuckled. A few glanced my way. Growing up, we learned from the best. Well, Marcus and I did. More laughter. Some people are meant for greatness and some people are meant to support from the background. And that's okay. We need babysitters too. The room erupted in laughter. Marcus stood up and wrapped his arm around Victoria. That's right. Someone's got to watch the kids while the real adults handle business. I felt my face flush, but I kept my expression neutral. I'd learned years ago that reacting only made it worse. When I was 16, they'd started calling me the spare. When I was 22 and graduated college with honors, Dad told me it was cute, but not practical. When I started working in property management at 23, Victoria told everyone I was basically a building janitor. I took a sip of water and stayed quiet. But I wasn't just standing there taking it. I was counting down. Emily. Victoria called out, her voice sickeningly sweet. Come here. I want to introduce you to some of Dad's associates. I walked over slowly. She had her arm around 2 older men in expensive suits. The Carlson brothers, developers who'd worked with Dad for 20 years. This is well, I guess technically she's my sister. Victoria's laugh was like breaking glass. Emily works in property management. She takes care of buildings. Makes sure toilets work, that kind of thing. That's important work, one of the Carlson brothers said politely. Oh, absolutely. Victoria agreed with mock enthusiasm. Someone has to do it. Emily's always been more of a background person. Not everyone can handle real business pressure, you know? Some people are just built for simpler things. Marcus joined in. We've tried to help her get her actual opportunities, but she seems content with her little maintenance job. Can't teach ambition, I guess. I smiled and said nothing. Victoria leaned closer, lowering her voice just enough that only I could hear. You're just the babysitter now. Not real family. You know that, right? You're here because Mom felt guilty. But we all know you don't belong. The Carlson brothers looked uncomfortable. One of them excused himself. That's when I saw Michael approaching, the venue manager. He was a tall man in his 40s, professional and efficient. He'd been managing the Meridian estate for me since I bought it 2 years ago. Ms. Carter, Michael said formally, walking up to our group. I apologize for interrupting. May I speak with you for a moment? Victoria's face twisted in confusion. Ms. Carter? Her last name is Henderson. My mistake, Michael said smoothly, though he knew exactly what he was doing. Ms. Henderson. May I? I excused myself and walked a few steps away with Michael. He kept his voice low. The Henderson family's account is now 3 months overdue. The payment for tonight's event, $47,000, has not been processed. Their credit card declined an hour ago. Should we proceed with the account closure protocol? I glanced back at Victoria, who was watching us with narrowed eyes. Then at Dad, who was laughing with his friends. Then at Mom, who was showing off her new diamond bracelet to a group of women. Give me 2 minutes, I said quietly. Michael nodded and stepped back. I walked back to the bar and ordered another water. The jazz band started playing Fly Me to the Moon. Guests were laughing, eating appetizers that cost $300 per platter. The ice sculpture of Dad's initials was already starting to melt under the warm lights. My phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Why was the manager talking to you? Did you embarrass us somehow? I didn't respond. Another text. Seriously, Emily. What did you do? I watched her from across the room. She was getting agitated now, whispering to Marcus, who was pulling out his phone. Dad approached me, a glass of scotch in his hand. Emily. Your sister tells me you were speaking with the venue manager. Is there a problem? You should ask him, I said calmly. I'm asking you. His voice had that edge to it. The tone that used to make me shrink when I was younger. There's no problem, Dad. Enjoy your party. He studied me for a moment, then walked away. I could see him heading toward Michael. I pulled out my phone and sent one text to Michael. Proceed. 3 minutes later, the background music stopped. The lights dimmed slightly, not completely off, but enough to notice. Conversations faltered. People looked around, confused. Michael walked to the center of the room with a microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption. I'm Michael Torres, manager of the Meridian estate. I need to speak with the Henderson family privately. There's been an issue with tonight's arrangements. Dad's face turned red. What are you talking about? This is my birthday party. Sir, if you could please step into the side office with your family members, we can resolve this quickly. Victoria stood up, furious. This is completely unprofessional. Do you know who we are? Yes, ma'am. That's why we need to speak with you immediately. Michael's tone was firm but respectful. Your account is significantly overdue. The room went silent. 150 guests watching. Dad's business associates. Mom's country club friends. Everyone. Mom grabbed Dad's arm. Thomas, what is he talking about? There's been a mistake, Dad said, but his voice wavered. I paid for this event months ago. No, sir. Your initial deposit was paid. The remaining $47,000 was due 1 week ago. Your credit card was declined this evening when we attempted to process it. I watched Victoria's face go pale. Marcus pulled out his phone, frantically checking something. This is ridiculous. Victoria shouted. You're ruining Dad's party over some billing error. Michael remained calm. It's not an error. Your family has also accumulated additional charges for 3 previous events held here over the past 18 months. The total outstanding balance is $73,500. The owner has decided to close your account. The owner. Dad's voice was sharp. I want to speak with the owner. Now. The owner is present, Michael said. Everyone looked around. Guests murmured. Who is the owner? The Meridian estate was one of the most prestigious venues in the city. No one knew who owned it. Dad scanned the room. Where are they? Michael turned and looked directly at me. Ms. Carter, would you like to address this situation? The room went completely silent. Victoria's mouth dropped open. Marcus's phone clattered onto the table. Mom grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. Dad's face went from red to white in seconds. Wait, Victoria's voice cracked. Wait. Emily. I walked forward slowly, deliberately. Every eye in that ballroom was on me. The same people who'd been laughing at Victoria's jokes minutes ago. The The same people who'd watched me be dismissed and mocked without saying a word. The Meridian estate has been under my ownership for 2 years, I said clearly. I purchased it through Carter Property Holdings, the company I built from the ground up starting at age 23. The same company you've all assumed was a maintenance job. Dad tried to speak but nothing came out. I've allowed you to host events here because despite everything you're still my family. But the account is 3 months overdue. The payment for tonight, $47,000, was supposed to be processed last week. It wasn't. This is insane, Victoria whispered. You don't have that kind of money. Carter Property Holdings owns 11 commercial properties in this city, I continued. Including the office building where Marcus works, Victoria. The one with the green glass facade downtown. I'm your landlord. Marcus looked like he might be sick. I also own the shopping complex where Mom does her charity luncheons, and the apartment building where you rented your first place after college, Victoria. I've been here the whole time. Building. Investing. Growing a business. While you called me a janitor. Mom's voice was barely audible. Why didn't you tell us? I tried. Multiple times. But every conversation ended with you telling me to get a real job, or asking when I'd do something meaningful with my life. I looked at Dad. You told me last Christmas that I was wasting my potential. That I should come work for you if I wanted to learn about real estate. Dad's Scotch glass trembled in his hand. I didn't need your help. I didn't need your connections. I built Carter Property Holdings by myself, starting with a single duplex I bought when I was 23 with money I saved from 3 jobs. I renovated it, rented it, used the profit to buy another property. Then another. Then another. The guests were completely silent. Some were recording on their phones. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration, I said quietly. I was going to let the bills slide. Just like I've let previous bills slide because I didn't want to embarrass you. But then Victoria called me, just the babysitter. Told me I'm not real family. In front of everyone here. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. Emily, I didn't mean. You did mean it. You've meant it for years. All of you have. I looked at each of them. So here's what's going to happen. Michael will give you a final invoice for the outstanding balance of $73,500. You have 30 days to pay it. If you don't, I'll file a civil suit. Emily, please, Mom said. This is your father's birthday. We can discuss this privately. Like you discussed privately when you told me not to come to Victoria's engagement party because I'd bring down the energy? Or when you uninvited me to Christmas because Victoria wanted a successful family photo? We're past private conversations, Mom. I turned to Michael. Please proceed with closing the Henderson account. Effective immediately. Wait. Dad finally found his voice. You can't do this. This is my party. These are my guests. And this is my property, I said firmly. You have 10 minutes to gather your things. Security will escort everyone out. I'll refund deposits to the guests who paid to attend. They shouldn't suffer because of your financial irresponsibility. Victoria was crying now, mascara running down her face. Marcus had his arm around her, but he looked terrified. He knew that if I owned his office building, I could make his life very difficult. I built something real, I said. While you mocked me. While you treated me like I was worthless. I was closing deals and building a portfolio that's now worth over $40 million. I don't need your approval anymore. I don't need your acceptance. And I definitely don't need to be called a babysitter by people who can't even pay their bills. The lights came back up to full brightness. Security guards appeared at the doors. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael announced. I apologize, but this event is concluded. Please proceed to the exits. Valet will have your cars ready. Guests started moving, whispering, staring at my family. The Carlson brothers walked past me. One of them nodded with what looked like respect. Impressive, Ms. Carter. I watched as 150 people filed out. Watched as Dad stood frozen in the middle of the empty ballroom. Watched as Victoria clung to Marcus, both of them realizing that everything they thought they knew was wrong. Mom approached me slowly. Emily, I don't understand. When did all this happen? Over the last 7 years, I said. While you were busy being ashamed of me. We weren't ashamed. Yes, you were. And that's okay. I stopped needing your pride a long time ago. I picked up my bag. The invoice will be sent tomorrow. 30 days. That's more than fair. I started walking toward the exit. Dad called after me. Emily. We need to talk about this. I turned back one last time. No, Dad. We really don't. You wanted successful children. You got one. You just didn't recognize her because she didn't fit your idea of what success looks like. I walked out of the Meridian estate, my estate, and got into my car. My phone was already blowing up with messages. From Victoria. From Mom. From family friends who'd been at the party. I ignored all of them. Instead, I drove to my apartment overlooking the harbor. The place Victoria had once called, that tiny shoebox. The place that was actually a 2,000 square foot penthouse I'd designed myself. I poured a glass of wine and stood on my balcony looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, my family was dealing with the reality that the person they'd dismissed and mocked for years was the one who'd been quietly succeeding all along. My phone rang. It was Michael. They're gone, he said. Security escorted them out. The venue is clear. Thank you, Michael. For what it's worth, Miss Carter, I thought you handled that with remarkable restraint. Most people would have done much worse. Maybe, I said. But they're still my family. I just needed them to see me. Actually see me. I think they see you now, Michael said. After I hung up, I sat down and looked at the messages flooding my phone. 23 from Victoria. 15 from Mom. 8 from Dad. 3 from Marcus. I opened the one from Dad. We need to talk. This isn't over. I replied with one sentence. Yes, it is. Happy 60th birthday. Then I blocked all of their numbers. Because that's the thing about being invisible for so long. Eventually, you realize you don't need to be seen by people who never wanted to look. I built my empire in silence. I succeeded in silence. And I would continue in silence. Just not their silence anymore. My